What's up, everybody? My name is Mike Brown, aka ReviewKingMB, and I am here to talk about and review The Mummy. The Mummy is a 1999 film that was directed by Stephen Sommers, and the plot is we meet Brendan Fraser, who plays this guy, Rick O'Connell, who is out there in the middle of the desert. He's with these other explorers. He's looking for this great treasure until something goes horribly wrong. But then he gets recruited and hired by this girl, Evelyn, played by Rachel Weisz, and her brother, Jonathan. They're looking for this secret code from this book, and they have to go to the pyramids to find it, and they need him to guide them up there. So, of course, they accidentally unleash and open up this tomb that has this mummy who is just powerful enough to destroy the world. Now, what I think of The Mummy is, you know what? I enjoyed this movie. I do. And it's one of those things where I think everybody remembers this movie, remembers when it came out and how much of a big hit it was, especially for the time. And it wasn't until I started watching the movie until I realized that, wow, I probably haven't seen this movie since I was a kid. When this came out, 1999, I was 9 years old. So, it's been a long time, and there's small, random things that I remember about it, little things here and there, but overall, it was like watching this for the first time, watching it just now. There's a few things I want to talk about. First of all, Brendan Fraser as Rick O'Connell. I will say that it's funny to think of a time when Brendan Fraser was everywhere. He was in all of these weird movies that were all kind of big hits. So, technically he was a big star for a few years, but obviously that star faded a little bit. I feel like nowadays Brendan Fraser's name is used for a punchline when it comes to stuff like The Mummy or Remember George of the Jungle, or just all these movies that you go wow, he was such a 90s star. But watching him in this movie, he does have some charisma. He does have a leading man quality that you can buy him in this role as this guy who is sort of a tough guy in some ways, but he is charming in other ways, and you see him especially work off a character like Evelyn, played by Rachel Weisz, she is an Academy Award-winning actress. She's such a good actress. And she's really pretty, especially in this movie, that when you see her character, I don't want to say that she's dumbed down or anything like that. In some ways, she's the damsel in distress, but in other ways, she has some funny moments. She's kind of quirky. She's clumsy. They give her characteristics to try to make her somewhat different than most female characters or love interest characters in a big blockbuster movie like this. So I do appreciate that. She did have some sort of a personality. It feels like with the writing, even though it is a blockbuster movie, so in some ways maybe the characters are thin, but in other ways, their backstories, the first few minutes spends a lot of time getting into the backstory of not just only these main characters, but even the mummy himself, who's played by Arnold Vosloo, who he doesn't even speak English at all in this movie. I think in real life he does, but this movie he doesn't speak English at all. You get this backstory of him and the love of his life, the daughter of a pharaoh that he was having an affair with, and then once it was found out, they were sentenced to death, and his death was very gruesome and violent. And even though it's PG-13, it's some moments in the film that are yeesh, I've seen enough. But I was surprised how much time, once again, they spent with some of the backstory. Some of the other characters, you have Jonathan, Evelyn's brother, played by John Hannah, who you could say is the comic relief, but he never got too overbearing. He never got too annoying. He never got to the point where I was just fucking kill this guy already, which is how that character could have been played. You have Odette Fair as a Death Bay, who is this guy leading a bunch of other people that are chasing after Brendan Fraser throughout the whole movie. Which I like this actor, Odette Fair. I've seen him in a bunch of things, and he too is one of those 90s actors that you remember seeing pop up. Especially Jonathan Hyde is in this movie. It's a small part, kind of, but I swear you can name like 5 or 6 movies in the 90s, and Jonathan Hyde probably was in them. He's one of those character actors that popped up in everything that I saw growing up as a kid, this being one of them. And another thing I want to mention is that this movie probably is remembered by most people for being, like I said, a blockbuster. So one of the first few movies that really went for it with special effects and CGI. There is a lot of CGI in this film. Clearly, it was like Hollywood realized, holy shit, we're in the beginning stages of really using CGI, really going for it, but we are going to go for it. And I will admit, there are some scenes that you look back and they don't hold up as well as you probably would hope with CGI, but there are other scenes with the CGI where I'm like, wow, this does hold up. Wow, this does look good. Some of this does look better than some of today's CGI, and I give them a huge credit for that. There's scenes with the Mummy, for example, which sure, maybe he might not be the traditional mummy wrapped in the tissue and going around, but you do see him for a good portion of the movie before he fully regenerates, where he is zombified, where he is gross looking and kind of scary looking. Sure, there's big action, all the set pieces, and the big sand monster with the huge face coming around, especially going after them while they're in the helicopter. That's one of those scenes that you remember the most from this movie. Just the effects of that still look great. I remember being a kid and being completely freaked out by that giant sand face. But there are a couple small moments, maybe only 2 or 3 scenes, that are more in the horror realm. Like this one guy loses his glasses and he's in that hallway and he can't see, but you just hear noises of something following him. That's kind of freaky. There's a few scenes like that. The scenes with those beetles or scorpions or whatever the hell they are. Really gross stuff. So I will say, going back and rewatching this, look, I'm not saying I might have some nostalgic feelings for it, but I didn't like this wasn't some huge my childhood love movie, so I'm not saying it's one of my favorite movies of all time. I'm just saying that it was a pleasant surprise to go back, rewatch this, and end up enjoying it as much as I did. This film surprisingly still holds up. I know it's not the original Mummy, I know it's not like the quintessential Mummy story, but it's a Mummy movie that I think of and go back to when I do think of a Mummy movie. So guys, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of the 1999 Mummy? Do you like it? Do you love it? Do you appreciate it for nostalgic reasons? Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Later!